Okay, let's talk about smart objects. A smart object is a special kind of layer that you can modify endlessly without ever losing the original quality of its contents. In this episode, I'll explain the concept of smart objects and some of the benefits it brings when editing images. So this will only be a quick introduction. The capabilities of smart objects go beyond what I'm going to show in this episode, but this will just give you an introduction that will show you some of the benefits that you have when working with smart objects. So let's click the open button or press Command O or Control O, and in the stock images folder you will find a Photoshop document called Smart Objects. Click it and open it. I prepared this just to show you a quick example, and then I show you how I made it and what's the behavior of the smart objects that you see here on this quick and simple example. So I have this picture from Pexels, and I wanted to replace the frame with my own photograph. So I created this frame and I added a photo inside of it. Now, this is a smart object. This layer that says frame 1 is a smart object, and you can tell it's a smart object because you can see this little icon on the bottom right of the thumbnail, and frame 1 copy is a copy of this smart object. Now, when you turn a layer into a smart object, which by the way is really simple, all you need to do is right click and choose convert to smart object. We're gonna do this again, just let me explain this quick example first. When you double click on a smart object, you will open its contents on a new tab. So just double click on frame 1, and this is what you see. Now, the original object that I created was this rectangle, and I turned it into a smart object, and then I modified it with the Distort tools. I'm gonna show you how I did that in just a second. And these are the contents. Now, everything that you add on this document, when you save it, is going to be reflected over here. And also over here, because this is a copy of the first smart object. So let me just demonstrate that. I'm just going to grab the brush tool, and I will create a new layer on top. So basically, when you open this smart objects, you're just like having a separate document, and here you can add as many layers as you want, as many effects, filters, layer styles, whatever you want. And once you save it, you will see that reflected on the other document. Also notice that the extension of this is PSB, not PSD. Okay, so that's the difference. Now let me just paint something really quickly just to show you that it actually works. So I'm going to paint with red over here, and in order to see the change over here, you have to save it. So you have to press Command S or Control S or go to File, Save. And when you save it, it's going to update that other document. As you can see, I have this painted over here, and I also have the same thing painted over here, but I have, since it's a copy, it's reflecting over here, but I have an effect on this second layer which desaturates the image, and that's one of the benefits I wanted to show you. So basically, you can replicate multiple smart objects with the same contents, in this case this photo over here, and have different effects on each of them. You can see on frame 1 copy, on the right side of the layer, you have this 2 circles icon. This indicates that this layer has a smart filter. So when you apply a filter to or an adjustment to a layer that is a smart object, that filter or adjustment turns into what's called a smart filter. And it's indicated by these 2 circles over here. If you expand this, you can see the smart filters, and you can see which ones I applied. In this case, I applied hue saturation adjustment, which I can disable. And then I also applied a Gaussian blur. Let me just zoom in with Control 1. You can see that the image is blurred. It's out of focus. Okay, so that's what I did with the smart filters. And this thing over here is actually a mask. This is the mask of these smart filters. If I get the brush, and remember, masks only have black and white on them, and if I want to hide these 2 effects on part of this image, I can just click and paint on this mask with black, and I can get rid of those effects. Okay. Also, you notice that on the right side of each of these filters, you have this little icon with the sliders. If you double click it, you will open the panel of that particular filter, and you can adjust the blend mode and you can adjust the opacity of that filter. I clicked on the Gaussian blur so I could drop the opacity of it, and you can see that this part now becomes more in focus, and I can also change the blend mode of that particular adjustment. I'm gonna leave it like that and go to the hue saturation. Maybe you will see it better. If I double click here, it's gonna open the same thing here, and if I drop, let me drop the opacity, you can see how now the effect is less and less, and the color starts to show up as I approach 0%. Okay, and again, the same with the blend modes. You could use blend modes on this adjustments. So it's just like having a layer, but inside of this smart object. Now, let me show you how I did this really quick. I'm gonna delete that. And this is really useful when working with templates, for example, or you want to have multiple designs with variations, but have the same contents. Or for example, have a logo on different parts of the document with different sizes, and you want to change, once you change the logo on one side, you want to update that on the rest of the places where you have the copy of that logo. Now, let me show you how I made that smart object and I replaced these images here. I just grabbed the rectangle tool and I made a simple selection like that, more or less the same size as my frame there, and now I turned this into a smart object. Right click, convert to smart object, and only then I distorted, because if I distorted before I turn it into smart object, when I double click and open it, it's gonna show up distorted. So I want to have it straight because now I can add my photo right over here. So I will go back to my stock folder, and let's use I don't know, maybe let's use this image, and I'm gonna just, with Control Tab you can switch between your folder and Photoshop, and I'm just gonna drop my image here. It's another way of doing it, and this in itself, it's a smart object, because when you drop an image on an existing document, it's going to turn it into a smart object automatically. So I'm going to just press enter and save. Now, if I go back to my document, you can see my image over here. Now, I can safely close this now, this PSB file, close it, and now I will distort this to make it fit my frame. First, I will drop the opacity a bit because I want to be able to see the frame through my image. And I will press Ctrl T or Command T to load the free transform. You can also do it from Edit, Free Transform, but it's a lot quicker using the keyboard shortcut. Now, Option and mouse wheel to zoom in, or Alt mouse wheel, space bar click and drag, or use the navigator to move through your canvas. And I will place the first corner right over here. And now I will start to distort this. I will zoom out, and when you have the free transform loaded, so basically this is a good example, a good practice to just practice a little more the basic operations. When you have this tool loaded, if you right click, you see a set of options. You can flip the image, you can rotate it. I'm interested in the distort, because this allows me to click on any of these control points and just drag them to where I want them. In this case, right over there. This one right over there, and this one over here. Now I will press enter to accept the change, click the opacity and bring it back to 100%. Now my image is fitting the same perspective, and an interesting thing to keep in mind is that now if I press Control Command T again, because this is a smart object, it recognizes where my points are. If you don't have a smart object, you will see just a square box around your image. So it's gonna also record how much I rotated the image, or if I applied any of the distortions from there. So smart objects keep all the edits there, so you can always edit things. You can create a duplicate of this by pressing Control Command J. Now, when you do that, you can move this away. These are two identical smart objects, which means if I change the contents on any of them, they will both update. Let me show you that. I will open the copy, rectangle 11, and I'm just gonna simply deactivate this and save. If I go back here, you can see both of them are the same because they are the same identical copy. If you want to duplicate this but not have just unlink them, you can right click and choose New Smart Object via Copy. And now if I move it from here and just double click here and do the same that I did before, save it, go back, you can see only this one updates. This is useful sometimes when you want to have multiple objects but have different variations and you don't want to update all of them at the same time. So that's how you unlink them. Now, if you want to have 3 different copies with 3 different effects, you can just simply duplicate them with Control Command J, move it, just drop the opacity a bit, and do the same. Press Control Command T, and further distort this to fit your other frames. Right click, distort, and just place your points there. This is just one thing you can do with smart objects. There are many other things you can do. Okay, now I fitted that over there and bring back the opacity to 100%. Now I have 2 copies with different distortions, and of course I can have different objects, different effects. Sorry, because now I can add filters or adjustments. For example, I could add an adjustment layer, like for example a color lookup, as a clipping mask, because I only want to affect layer 11 copy, and I could use, for example, this one. Now, if you want to save some space here on the layers panel, what you can do is, instead of using an adjustment layer, you can use an adjustment right from the menu Image Adjustments and use color lookup and do exactly the same. Choose the same preset. Let's choose, I don't know which one it was, Edgy Amber, and click OK. You can see the effect is the same, but now I don't have the layer here. I have it as a smart filter. And you can see it right over here. If you want to change it, double click. This will open the blending options. If you just double click the name, it's going to open the panel of that adjustment. So you can change the preset if you want to. See that? Or maybe this one. I don't know. And click OK. So if you want to change the opacity of that particular filter or the blend mode, you click this sliders icon. If you want to change the preset or the settings of the adjustment itself, click the name, double click the name, okay? And from here you can change the settings. So that's basically what you can do with smart objects. There are a lot more to smart objects than this, but just keep this in mind. You can you can create multiple copies and update all of them at the same time. And another great benefit is that you never lose the original pixels of this, because as soon as you double click here, you're going to open the image at 100% zoom without losing the quality. You can make any edits here and go back, and all of the copies will be updated on your document. And also you can apply some adjustments, like for example, the shadows and highlights, which cannot be used as a layer. You can use it non-destructively because it's automatically going to convert it into a smart filter. So that's a quick introduction to smart objects.